It's time to work on the settings view controller. So let's begin by creating a new class. So next, we'll call this settings view controller.swift. Oh, and I thought I'd reverted that. Anyway, I was having a problem with Xcode the last time I tried to record this video, so I'm redoing it. Okay, every time you want to create a view controller, you're going to need to change import foundation to import UI kit. And let's make our class settings view controller. And this is going to inherit from UI table view controller. Now, what are the pieces we're going to want here? Well, we're going to need some constants. We're going to need outlets. We're going to want some properties. We're going to need to play with the view controller lifecycle just a little bit as we initialize things on view.did_load. Let's see. Next, we're going to have, of course, some helpers. Oh, I've got this backwards. And let's see. We'll want some actions. And then later on, I don't know if we'll get to it in this video or a future video, but we'll need a picker data source and a picker delegate. And these are analogous to the table view data source and delegate that we saw with our previous, a couple of videos ago with the dynamic table view. Okay, for constants, you know what, we'll come back to those. Let's start with the model. What does the model of this thing look like? Well, going to our storyboard. Oh, and by the way, now I've created a settings view controller, so let's compile this thing. And now let's go to the settings view controller and let's go to the identity inspector. And we'll say, look, I don't want you to be just an ordinary table view controller. I want you to be a settings view controller. And so now it's our custom one. And let's get the assistant editor up. And you see when we select the settings view controller, we have our class settings view controller on the right. Let's make outlets now because, okay, let's see. Let's make outlets because that's a good model of what we're going to need to include in the model layer of this. So we have a notification switch that's either going to be on or off. We have this picker view over here. So I'll call this picker view. And now we have these 7 buttons. And I don't want to just make an outlet. I want to make an outlet collection. So I'm going to control drag this thing over here. And rather than outlet, I'm going to choose outlet collection. And I'm going to call this day buttons. And it's going to be now an array of these things. Okay, and now I'm going to control drag. Let's see, I'm having a hard time. Okay, let's go the other way. Escape. Let's drag from here to each one of these. And so you can see I can build my collection. This fashion. All right, let's see here. I need to see what all it has. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay, so I should have all 7 of those in there. Now, there's a little bit of a problem. That is, I don't have any idea what order it's going to present these buttons to me in. There's no guarantee it's going to go left to right or the order that I dragged them or anything like that. So what I'm going to need to do, I want to tag each of these buttons with a different tag. And if I scroll down here, you see that view has a tag property, and it's by default set to 0. So I want Sunday to be 0, I want Monday to be 1, Tuesday to be 2, and so forth. So let's go set that, and then when I interact with one of these things, I can interact with it by tag. Okay, so let's just go back. Let's see, Wednesday that ought to be 3, Monday ought to be 1. Okay, looks good. So that's an outlet collection, and we'll interact with that just somewhat differently, as we'll see during this video. Okay, so what does that model look like? Well, okay, I've got a Boolean telling me are notifications on or off. So let's do var notifications on, and let's just default it to true. And then we have for this picker here, we're going to want 3 wheels, an hour, a minutes, and an AM PM spinner. So 3 different wheels here. And so I want 3 different components for that. So let's do our hour index, and that's going to be, let's just say 7 AM is going to be the initial. And then we have minutes index. Let's set that to 0. And let's have var is AM, and let's say true, so it's 7 AM is my default time. And then let's have an array of Booleans that tell me, am I supposed to notify on each of the days? And we'll initialize it to true all the way across. Okay, so I've got 7 trues in that array, and that corresponds with this outlet collection. And okay, so we've got our model. So let's go to viewDidLoad, and we're going to say always super.viewDidLoad. Anytime we override one of these view controller life cycles, we try to get the super engaged quickly. Okay, and now I'm going to call update UI. This is going to be the pattern that we use over and over again. Update UI's job is to say, okay, I'm going to inspect my model, these 5 things here, and I'm going to configure my user interface, my view layer, this stuff up here represented by the outlets. I'm going to configure them to match the model. Okay, so let's private func update UI. And what is update UI supposed to do? Well, all right, so let's start with the notification switch. Notifications switch dot, and now let's look what we have here. There's an is on that lets me test whether it's on or off. Oh, there's a set on, and I can decide whether I want to animate or not. So I'm going to do set on, and the value for on is going to be my notifications on property coming out of my model layer here. Now animated, I'm going to say false because I'm in viewDidLoad, it's not on screen, and I don't care to animate it right now. I'm setting the UI to the configuration I want it to be. Okay, next we have the picker view. Now, so picker view dot select. Okay, so right over here, see what I can do. I can select a row in a component animated yes or no, true or false. So I'm going to do select row. Now the row that I want, I need to do the hour, minutes, and is AM, PM. So, okay, let's see here. Actually, I'm going to come back to this one, okay? I'm not ready to set this just yet. Let's work on the picker a bit, the data source and delegate, so it's understandable. Okay, so needs work. Initialize the picker components. Okay, and then finally we have the day of the week buttons, and that's going to be fairly straightforward. For button in day buttons, so we're going to iterate over everything in our outlet collection, and now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, button dot background color, and so this is the thing that can change depending on whether I am notifying for that day or not. So now what I need to do is I need to know, well, is notify days for that button true or false? And so I'm going to assign that to notify days sub, and now here I have a button, so I'm going to ask it for its tag, and now that gets me the entry in the notify days that corresponds to that particular button that I'm looking at. And so if that's true, then what I'm going to do is I want an enabled color, and otherwise I want a disabled color. And here I need some constants. So let's go write our first constants. Let's do a private struct color, and I've got 2 colors. Static let disabled equals, and now let's go UI color dot clear. That's a predefined one. And then static let enabled equal UI color, whoops, color. And let's build one. And let's use this red let's see, where is the, well, anyway, red 0.85, don't know what happened to my auto-completion here. Green is going to be 0.85, and blue is going to be 0.85 with an alpha of 1.0, fully opaque. And by the way, let's go over here and into the single editor view. And now it's a little bit wider. Okay, so now I can say, if this is true, so if I'm notifying on that day, then I want this to be color.enabled. Otherwise, I want it to be color.disabled. We do that for each button, and I think we've configured, other than the needs work on the picker, we've configured this. Okay, so let's run, and I'm going to set Wednesday to false so that we can see that something is set to false. And I'm going to set notifications on to false and run and see if it configures the settings view controller differently than what we've seen before when we've run this thing. So up comes the come on. Come on. Boy, it's taking its time. We've got some performance issues here. Okay, I click on settings. You see Wednesday is not set. Notify switch is off. And if I turn that around the other direction, true and true, you'll see those the way we've seen them before. Okay, with that much done, now I'm ready to work on, oh, let's do the toggle of notifications first. See, there's the normal view. Okay, let's do toggle notifications first. So I need one more, I need to create an action over here, actually a couple of actions. So assistant view. All right, so two actions. One for the notification switch. So we're going to call this action. And this is coming from a UI switch. And this is going to be toggle notifications. Yep, that's all correct. Okay, and then I want one more action. And that is from these buttons here. I want to have, again, an action. This is coming from a UI button. And I'm going to call this toggle day. And now, just as before, I want that associated with each of the buttons. So I'm just going to drag from this target up to each of these guys. And I could go the other way, control dragging onto the toggle day. It works either way. So now, all 7 of those are targets of toggle day. All right, so back to the single editor view. Okay, so toggle notifications is pretty straightforward. What we want to do here is we want to say, all right, so notifications on is equal to sender, so that switch dot is on. Pretty straightforward. And now, at some point, I'm going to want to save settings. Should I update the UI? Well, the answer is I don't need to, because I know that that was already updated by the fact that I clicked on that switch. So I don't need to call update UI here. Okay, now on the toggle day, what do? Well, so we go to our notified days array, and again we're going to index it by the sender.tag. And so that gets me the particular notification entry, and we're going to just negate it. So notified days subsender tag is equal to the Boolean negation of that. And now here I will want to update the UI because I'm responsible for changing the background color on those buttons. And I would also want to save settings. In fact, you know what? Let me just put a save settings in here on both of these guys. And we'll just put a needs work on that. Private, oops, goes up above. To keep every section in alphabetical order, private func Save settings. Needs work. Do it. Okay, so now in particular, it ought to work to toggle the day buttons at this point. So let's verify that. Sunday. Yeah, seems to be working fine. I've got the ability to toggle those. And of course, I don't see anything visible changing when I toggle the switch here, but I anticipate, in fact, let's put a breakpoint here. I anticipate it's calling and notifying my program. And yeah, it is. So notifications on currently is true. Let's prove that. Currently is true, and when I step over, now it's set to false. So that's doing what I want it to do, and that's just fine. Okay, I'm going to break the video at this point, and we'll come back in the next part and work on the picker data source and delegate.